Hello and welcome to Talking Hoosier Baseball. Today is Thursday, September 26th, 2024. I am Carl James, joined by Chris Feeny. The Indiana Hoosiers this past weekend traveled to Louisville and played an exhibition doubleheader, 8 innings each, against the Louisville Cardinals. In the official box scores, Indiana lost the opener 6-2. And came back to win the closing game 5-4. On the day, Louisville outscored Indiana 10-7, but Indiana did significantly out-hit Louisville on the day. Indiana actually hit into 3 double plays on the day total. That was one of the things that erased some critical base runners. But again, the outcomes aren't the important part of fall ball. The important part of fall ball is there's a lot of pitchers, a lot of new players out on the field. Chris and I were there, and we got a chance to take it in, and we just wanted to get an opportunity to talk about that with everybody, about what we saw, and kind of read those tea leaves before the next fall game. Which is coming up here in a little over a week, and before the eventually the spring season. So, Chris, what's on your mind?
Well, I'm a baseball enthusiast, as we all know, as we all are, and to just get back to the routine of it was real cool. I mean, even right down to just watching them warm up and seeing Wiggins and Taylor doing their thing pregame, and the guys throwing long ball, and it just seemed back to normal, right? It's like something we are used to doing, even if it's in a kind of gray day in September out in Kentucky somewhere. But it was great. I felt, just grateful to be there, to have an opportunity to watch the guys play, see a lot of the new faces, guys who we've been sending, Twitter highlights out and home runs and as their high school careers. And I knew a lot more of the freshmen, like the high school guys, I know a little bit more about. The transfers I really didn't. So it was good to learn about them and see them, put eyes on them, and really just see. We got a lot of new faces, man. We really do. And it's just, it is too. There's always that part every season where you don't see some people that you're so used to seeing at these games. Like, I don't know, the Mathesons, like the Tibbetts, like these guys were at everything. Okay. And I would always, end up chatting them up at some point throughout the game. So it was just also that beginning of a new season where these people that you've known for years, you don't see anymore at this certain outing. So that's always a little bit different. But I had a great time. I could have used less rain. I didn't really prepare as well as Carl and his team did. They were a little more prepared with umbrellas and whatnot. I did have to kind of hide for cover for a few innings. But all in all, it was a really fun experience. And really, I suggest anybody who can do it to get out there. I know it might seem like, oh, it's practice. You know what, though? You're getting to see guys you've never seen. And that's a big deal, at least for me. Spring training, it was never really a big deal for me growing up with the Mets. Never ever, to be honest with you. It was just something you'd watch on TV, and after like 2 innings, all right, this isn't real baseball anymore. But something about these new faces and seeing these kids for the first time is really, it's special to me. I really enjoy it. I was thinking back, my first fall ball was 15, I guess, because I got here in 14. And I remember the Mets were making a big run through. That was with Cespedes, went to the World Series and everything. And then again, now this year, the Mets are making a run, trying to get into the playoffs. And it was just like, wow, all these years later, we hadn't had a sniff really since then. It was pretty bad, but hey, it is what it is, right? And now we got to deal with rainouts and doubleheaders on if the season ends on Sunday. But it really was a good time to get out to the ballpark to see the Hoosiers. And thanks, Carl, for letting me third wheel it with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of that's also compared to a major league spring training in which you have, for the most part, on most of these major league teams, what the roster is going to look like, what the regular players are going to look like. There might be a couple question marks, but here you've got so many guys that are trying to make a statement to be able to get a starting position or a key roster spot in the spring. So these are, for a lot of these guys, these are very meaningful competitions, and they also only get 2 games against outside competition. So this is the Louisville trip was one. The other is going to be when Cincinnati comes to the BART on October 5th, and that's it from outside competition. After that, they're just going to be uh, you know intra-squad scrimmaging. So these are really rare opportunities, and like you said, lots of new faces, um, and there's a lot to learn. Now, take everything with a grain of salt, because I can tell you from experience, we've seen guys have phenomenal falls that uh, haven't quite worked out. I can honestly say the single worst inning of fall ball pitching by a Hoosier I've ever seen was followed up by a very good starting pitching season. So it you just it's a single event does not mean is not going to you can't necessarily extrapolate. However, we are able to see, can these pitchers throw strikes? Are they? What is the?
Hey, Carl,
What's
you're
the
not going to
pitch?
tell us? Carl, you got to say who that is.
Oh, yeah, it was Bradley Bremer. Uh, yeah,
Okay.
he
All right.
had,
We had to hear who it was. Come on.
but yeah, because he had a really rough outing at Cincinnati in the fall. And he also had a really rough outing on opening weekend at Clemson. Um, he wasn't the
Well,
only
not
one.
just not just
Yeah,
Bradley Brown.
it wasn't just him, but he was
Okay.
part of it. He was a big part of it.
That was a rough weekend. Oh my.
I mean, I think we heard the heat is on 3 times when he was pitching. So,
If I heard that song again, forget it. But honestly, the Sunday game was a really good ball game.
mhm.
As hard as Friday and Saturday were to sit through, and I believe we had an early lead in one of those games. I think it was the Saturday game.
Yeah,
The Sunday game was a legit ball game. We just lost in extra innings.
yeah,
We ran out of arms is honestly what I think happened. But
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
oh god, the heat is on.
Yeah, but the thing is, Bremer figured it out really quick, and
Mm-hmm.
then he went on to throw that absolutely needed complete game in the Big Ten tournament that set up Indiana being able to knock Maryland out of the conference
Yeah.
tournament. The only time an eight has done that to a one seed. So that was a fun experience and a really good season. So it just shows that certain struggles may not continue. And we've seen it the other way too, where guys really done well in the fall, but that just doesn't translate into the larger season. Now, one thing I will say though is it's over the time we followed the team, it just seems that the quality of the fall opponent just tends to get better. We had years where one of the two outside college teams would be a Division two team, and it was a big deal. It was like, oh, there's a year when it's going to be two Division one teams, but they're both, directional Illinois schools or something.
Yeah.
And this year, it's two Power Four programs.
Oh, yeah.
So you've got, Louisville from the ACC and Cincinnati from the Big 12. I think that says a lot that they're taking these outside opportunities very, very seriously. And it's also nice to see playing full 16 innings, because an opportunity to really get out there and have a lot of arms throw. And the fact that they did it, I mean, 10 runs over 16 innings is okay. It's not great, but it's okay. It's within the range that they generally going for, considering the strength of the offense. And they also did it without the two guys that are probably expected to at least shoulder a high percentage of the innings. They held back Drew Burr during the day, and but apparently he was available, but they really didn't want to necessarily have to use him. And Ryan Kraft is coming off Northwood League Pitcher of the Year campaign, in which his team won the championship, largely on his back. But since he pitched so much over the summer, they have shut him down for the fall to get him ready for the spring. So, those two guys are expected to shoulder a huge percentage of the innings. So, and they were not part of this. So, again, it just shows that things are well. Now, I would say going in, and if you look at my preview, as I said, I think the number one thing we were really wanting to see was how were the transfer pitchers going to perform. That was, when it comes down to it, you're looking at 36 innings in a typical week, uh, up to 45, maybe even more than that in a playoff week. There's a lot of innings to cover. And if there's anything Indiana struggled with over the last few years, it's getting into that regional. It's being able to keep it going, or Big Ten tournament, whatever it is. Those playoff periods, you got to have the pitching to keep going. Even in cases where you're in the catbird seat, and you should have an advantage in that, and it doesn't pan out because you just don't have enough quality arms to eat that many innings. The biggest name, at least according to D1, was Southern Indiana transfer Gavin Siebold, and he was very impressive in his outing. We didn't see him for very long. It was 2 innings, which is more than almost anybody else pitched. But the fact that he did it in 17 pitches,
Yeah.
and I mean, he said basically he got, yeah, after getting 2-2 on the first batter, he ended up throwing 4 pitches and getting 4 outs. So a strikeout and 3 groundouts. And I found the groundouts to be the more impressive because the one thing this team could really use, they don't need a bunch of them, because I get it, stuff plays, and against the kind of competition that Indiana's going to be going with, the stuff is important. But I think it's also important, though, to have a few guys that are able to pitch to contact, that can throw strikes, and get weak contact early in counts, and be able to stay in games and get 5-6 innings covered. I think that's huge and important. Also, to give the flexibility for maybe a couple of these guys that are going to be more effective in like a 1 inning outing, that in the past may have been pushed to 2 or 3 innings and struggle, when, hey, all you need to do is go out there, face 4 guys, and get 3 outs, and then get back in, and then rest up, and we'll do it again 2 days later. I think there's an opportunity for that. Maybe I'm not right in that, but that's sort of what I'm thinking. You got to put 15 arms together that are able to compete solidly at the D1 level, throw strikes. You want the bulk of them to have good stuff, have really good stuff, but you also want a couple of just bulldogs in there that maybe don't have the fastest fastball, but they've got a working changeup, and they can mix it up and force balls into the ground, and and seeing what we saw defensively, I think that's also very important. And I will go ahead and hand it back to you, Chris, to talk about
Well,
defense.
that's a good handoff. If you're going to talk about defensively, there was a lot of stars out there. Cooper, I don't want to butcher his name. Malamazian, is that how we're going with Malamazian? Lots
Malamazian.
of great.
Yeah.
You say it, Carl.
Malamazian is how I understand it to be.
There you go. So
pronounced.
Cooper Malamazian, he got drafted by the Brewers. He was playing third base because Josh Pine was out with an injury. Coach told us later that Pine will probably be out for the fall, so we'll probably see a little bit more of Cooper in the next fall game too. But this guy was solid, man. There was hot shots down third base. He was snagging them. Now, did he make the play solidly every time? No, but he would knock it down, stay calm, clear the mechanism, make the throw, and he was really impressive. He'd go to both sides. He went to the line once. He went to the 5-6 hole a couple times. I was impressed. I don't know if Coach misspoke, but did he say he'd never played third base?
Yeah, he said. He said they've been working on it for a week.
I wonder, I thought I misheard it. The airplanes were going by. There was weird airplanes in the post game, but that's what Coach said. This was a new position for this kid, but he shined. He made a great, bare hand scoop throw to first. Let's see, Jolly made a nice play over the shoulder. Like, this thing got hit between, I'd say, so what's that? The 3-4 hole. He sprinted out, dove, made the play, made the throw to first. He's He's as advertised just like last year too. And then Dickinson, Carl, say it for me. Corbin,
Yep.
because I was getting his name wrong too on Sunday. Corbin Dickinson. This kid covers a ton of ground in center field. He played center late on the second game. I think he played right in the first game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there was that many opportunities for him that I remember from the first game, but in the second game, especially late, this guy covers a ton of ground out there. Made a couple of outstanding grabs out in center field. So that's Corbin Dickerson, transfer from Louisville. Here for the cycle during the doubleheader. The natural cycle. It was wild. It wasn't all in one game, but if you combined them, it was single, double, triple homer. And then, but the catches he was making, I mean, he was definitely the star. I mean, there was a lot of good D. The catching was solid. Jake, like we're used to behind the plate. TJ made a couple of nice saves, like on balls that could have got away with guys on third base. I would think that that's going to really lead to the pitchers trusting him more. That maybe, they can go up in the zone a little bit, maybe down in the zone, maybe, throw a breaking ball because they know TJ, if he's out there, can make the play. I'm trying to think of other big-time defensive plays.
Well,
Hanley at first base, right? Jake Hanley made a couple of nice scoops. Now, his footwork was a little off, like on the pitcher to first, like if there was a bunt or grounder. But a lot of that, I think, is just from new to the position coach was saying. I mean, it was apparent that he hadn't played much first as far as the footwork. But the scoops, he was digging them out. He was making the plays. So that was exciting to see, too. And, Cerny was solid as short, as always. I mean, that was pretty much the highlights of the defense.
Well,
it was really fun.
I would say you mentioned TJ, but I would have to, with TJ though, I'd have to talk about the back pick. That was impressive because Louisville. I mean, first of all, you have to understand, Louisville is a small ball team. They always have been. That's the way Dan McDonald rolls. He wants his teams to put the ball on the ground. They run, they steal, they try to pressure defenses, which was especially impressive that Indiana put a freshman at first and third with that kind of an offense attacking you. But they had runners at first and second, and they had the runner on second try to steal, and TJ caught the ball behind the plate. And he was looking the whole time over at third base like he was going to make a play. But instead, he backpicks the ball to first base and catches the runner way off of first there. And then Hanley and Tyler Cerny execute a perfect rundown that not only gets the guy out in the rundown, but also keeps the other guy at third base and doesn't allow him to score. So very well executed that whole play, and coach himself was very impressed with it. I think he's like, well, we practiced that one time.
He did. Well, that's the rope-a-dope. That's the Little League play where you send the guy and then you get baited to throw to first, throw to second, and the guy from third goes and and then they score. And it's the Little League play. I was a catcher in Little League. They would tell you, do not throw it all the way to second. We're going to run the shortstop halfway through. You're throwing it to him. Yep. He's not there yet, but that's where you're throwing the baseball. But now, like you said, TJ just was cool as ice and just waited it out. It was like Belichick waiting for the Seahawks to not call timeout and then throw the interception, right? I'll never forget that. He just sat there and he waited. And Seattle screwed it up. And it was just like TJ. I won money on that. That's the only reason I bring up the Patriots. I had the box. I had the final box on that. So trust me, if you have the final box, you're ruined. You don't care if it's the Patriots or anybody. Mm-hmm. But, he just waited him out, and made the throw. And it's a simple throw, right? But you got a kid under pressure trying to, make a name for himself. And obviously Jake's our starter. But, TJ wants to be part of a midweek games and maybe a Sunday. And you can handle that throw to right field easily. Yeah. And he didn't. And that's a great call. That was an exciting play. I just really think don't get caught with this Little League, please. And we didn't. And we played it cool. But they're always with the bunting and the Louisville and the small ball. He's been doing that for 10 years. Yeah. That's just their style. That's what they're going to do. I mean, what do they got? 3 College World Series in 10 years? I mean, I guess not much you could say. But more so is they have the arms. You know, they always have. You just mentioned we don't have the arms, even in the catbird seat, to pitch to Kentucky that day. That's exactly what I was thinking about when you were saying it. Like we were up 2-0, but we didn't have guys to throw that game. And we knew we had to go to Game 7 and see what we were going to do. And I'm sure the same would have happened against Tennessee last season. If we would have pulled in Evansville and beat them that night, after it all played out, we were going to have to figure it out on that late Sunday night. We would have been playing Monday. We all know it.
Yep.
But, innings and pitches, right? It's more pitches than innings, I guess, right? And that Seabold, you mentioned him. He was in and out of the game like a robbery. We barely saw him. He was, he had the great first inning. The second inning, I think it was 17, 18 pitches. He was impressive. A couple other transfers that are just pulling up that I remember that caught my eye. That Eldridge, he was throwing smoke. I think, did he give up a run?
Yes, he did give up a.
But I think he was like 95 on a gun, though.
Yes, he was.
I noticed he was throwing gas, and that's always a good sign. I'm trying to think another really impressive one. I mean, those are the two in mind. I know I missed the Henry. If you could talk about him, Carl, because I know I missed him with the rain.
Well, yes, he's one of the freshman pitchers.
Oh, he's a freshman, not a transfer. Okay,
right. And he was another one of the Brewers draft picks. He was drafted in the 20th round. So he's a draft pick, and
Brummel. Henry Brummel.
Yeah, and he definitely looked the part. And I think he was getting up to 94, if I remember right.
Nice.
It was solid. To see here, I've got.
And that was in that good heavy rain, right? Yeah. Because I remember the innings that I missed was just because it was just wet and heavy.
Yeah.
Thick, that ball was wet.
Yeah, it was a 1-2-3 inning, 9 pitches, 2 strikeouts. But it was 90
days, so. Nice.
Yeah, 92, 93 is how he started. Then he went off speed, got a foul, and then caught him looking. He had another off speed, caught the guy looking. Then a 93 produced a ground out. And then that's when he went 93, 94 outside the zone, but then got a foul on 93. And then another, both of the strikeouts were on off speed, and based on the range, probably changeups, maybe sliders. I don't specifically remember. I've just recorded the velocities, but and again, that's based on whatever that. I don't know exactly how well tuned the Louisville gun
was.
Yeah. So when I say the speeds, take those with a grain of salt. Although I do take how the speeds adjust from pitch to pitch, that I think is pretty accurate. So as I said, he was taking about 10 miles per hour off between his fastball and his off speed, and it was working. So
you were definitely impressed. When I got back to the seats, you were like, "You missed a good one." He said one of the Brewers guys just threw, and you were definitely impressed. You were wide-eyed talking about Henry Brummel, that's for sure. Other freshmen, I guess, since we're talking freshmen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Brayton Thomas had a rough start to his inning, but really buckled down. I thought that was impressive. Got some guys on early, but really just shut it down. I don't believe he gave up the run. I believe he stranded second and third. They had second and third and 1 out, if I remember. I know I was looking forward to seeing him throw, and he really shut down after a little shaky start to the inning. But sometimes I like that. Like I remember an inning from last year with Ryan Rushing. If I remember right, he loaded the bases, and he stranded them all right there. So it kind of shows you sometimes what a freshman, a little moxie, a little guts.
Yeah.
I made this mess. I'm going to clean it up myself. So that was good from Brayton Thomas. Another freshman arm I'm trying to see here.
Is Trey Telfer.
Trey Telfer, number 46. Yep. He was late in the second game?
Yeah. And he threw to 4 batters. He did give up 1 hit, but that was it. And it was only 4, 6, 9, only 10 pitches to get out of the inning.
And this is a 1-run game, 5-4, when we know the game's over. So we basically got to save. Like, I don't know if they kept track of that, but he got put in a save situation, and he did his thing.
Yep.
That's a good one. Trey Telfer.
Then he touched 95, and he got a fly out. That was one of the good plays that.
Dickerson.
That Dickerson had.
Great catch in that wing. I guess it wasn't the 9th inning, but in our mind, it was the 9th inning of the second game.
Yeah,
because we knew that was it.
Yep.
That's the funny thing about football. You know how many innings it is. So like you're playing it out, and in your mind it's the 9th, but really it's the 7th, and that's kind of fun.
Well, there's actually a rumor. It's not going places just yet, but there's actually someone has proposed college baseball dropping to 8 inning games. So,
Really?
um, yes, that is something that has been at least floated and is being talked about at least somewhat seriously. As in, it's not like a joke. It's something that, but it's also not at the point of like, actually like
Yeah, of
being. But part of it is just when you're dealing with arm health and everything, maybe
course.
an
Yeah.
adjustment that might help could be to cut an inning out per game, and that cuts 3 innings out on a weekend. So.
I don't think it's a terrible idea, honestly, because the idea is, yeah, I know we want you to win the World Series, but the idea is to develop these players into the future. If someone goes to college for engineering, they're going to learn engineering. Someone goes to college to be a baseball player, they're going to learn to be a baseball player.
Yeah.
So if you're going to also cut down on some of the injury risk, I don't think that's a terrible idea at all.
Okay, so that covers that. Actually, I think we hit the major highlights. Um,
Well, the home
and
run, Hanley's home run, if people haven't heard about it,
yep.
my man's got a big swing. Okay, Jake Hanley playing first base. It was we were down 2-0, seventh inning. We hadn't scored all day, and he took one to right center field gap. Real smooth swing. I think we're going to really be impressed by this guy. He was playing first, for the games. He played both games, right? First base, if I remember. So I don't
Yeah.
know. That's basically where they're thinking for him for now. But even as an extra hitter, I think we got a nice bat under our arm. It was nice to see Ryan Gilbert in the dugout. I want to shout him out. He didn't play neither game, but to see that young man in a baseball uniform in the dugout with his teammates was pretty awesome. If you don't know the story, I don't want to go Kirk Signetti on you, but Google it. Just Google Ryan Gilbert. He had some medical issues when he first got on campus. He was part of the Brock Tibbetts, Carter Batson, Josh Pine class. Just Google it, and it's a hell of a story. The man is tougher than you ever known, and he's in our dugout, Ryan Gilbert. Now, maybe we'll see him play against Cincinnati at the BART. That would be awesome. But shout out to Ryan and his family for this comeback, just to be healthy and walk around in the world. Forgot about sitting in the dugout with his boys.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty cool, and he looks older than everybody else for a reason. He is older than everybody else. But it was just nice to see. He won the home run derby 2020 when the COVID thing happened, and all the players that used to go all over the country and the Cape and everything came to Indiana, believe it or not, in this put together summer league, and he won the home run derby. So it was quite competition, and he was a bat we all knew about. If I remember, I think he was a pitcher coming up, and then he scratched pitching and decided to focus on hitting and outfielding, and he went right up the rankings. But he committed to us, and again, had some medical problems on campus. Google it for the details. I'm not even going to try to explain it. It's too complicated and kind of heavy, to be honest with you. So give it a good read. Maybe we'll throw a link in there somewhere. You can check it out. But it was really good to see Ryan in that dugout. I have to say that.
Yep. Obviously, we had plenty of other players, returning players. Devin Taylor had a couple good hits. Tyler Cerny hit a home run. So there were some positive takeaways for several players. Coach overall was not pleased necessarily with the offensive approach. Now, keep in mind, as I said, Indiana out hit Louisville for the day, and hit into multiple double plays, and they were really hard hit balls too. Louisville, I'll say this: Louisville played excellent defense. They were very fundamentally sound.
And he knows his stuff. A lot of those balls, I think Audrey said it a couple times. He didn't move again, right? Everything was right to these guys.
Yeah.
So they're putting guys right where they needed to. And this, I don't really think there's a lot of tape on.
Yeah.
Obviously the guys coming back there is, but they were where they needed to be for those hard hit balls too.
Yeah. That was actually a point that made in the D1 wrote a little bit about the baseball wrote a little bit about the this game, and one of the things it called out was Jason Oliver more talking about his loud outs, that his outs were really, really hard hit balls. They were just right at people. So
yeah. Bad luck.
Yep, bad luck. I mean, it's one of the things. It circles around. If you're hitting the ball hard, eventually, it's going to find some turf, and it's going to eventually go in for for hits. So we will see that. Uh, so I guess I'd already mentioned Ryan Kraft, what he had done over the summer. You know, For the first time in a long time, Indiana had a player on Team USA. Devin Taylor played in the International Friendship Series, and he started and had a couple solid games for Team USA before he went to the Cape, and he also made had several solid games up at the Cape as well. So he had a pretty
Lots of
eventful
bombs too. A
summer.
lot of homers.
Yeah.
We sent out a lot of those homers out on
Hmm.
Twitter. Yeah, this guy had quite a summer with the long ball. People were trying to say like the Cape was trying to claim him as his. I was like, not so fast. Like that's our guy. We only loan him out to you. Perfect summer.
Yeah. Um, so obviously there's plenty of news regarding things changing in college baseball. Now the big news, uh, the brakes have to be put on because um, the massive lawsuit around college football and how players are going to be compensated going forward. That settlement got overturned by a judge, but it was a really big deal because in all of the discussions around that, baseball was part of this, and it was all about the idea that we could have as early as next academic year have seen a massive increase in the number of scholarships. Given the fact that the deal is not judge approved at this point, odds are that's not going to happen, and we may be pretty much continuing to coast with the current 11.7 scholarships and 40-man rosters for the foreseeable future. We'll know more probably in a few weeks as if they can kind of retool that deal to meet the judge's needs. But that's got a lot of things up in the air as far as how roster construction is going to work going forward. It's a really tough game to play. Um, a lot of teams have collected lots of players in the fall, um, and then made a lot of cuts before the spring. Um, we don't know what the rules are going to look like that going forward. Indiana hasn't been nearly as aggressive with loading up on players. Um, you look at the roster now, you might think that's the case, but it's not because there are programs that have 55 to 60 guys show up in the fall to try to fill 40 slots. And Indiana
Pinch running
isn't.
competition.
Yeah, Indiana isn't
Not
anywhere
even
near
close,
that.
folks. Not
Yep.
even close.
So we're keeping an eye on those things, and we'll communicate about that when something more definitive happens. Now, as anyone paying attention to the Big Ten knows, Big Ten has expanded. There are four new programs, which includes four new baseball programs in UCLA, USC, who, by the way, has the most national championships under their belt of any program. Um, you've got Washington and Oregon all coming in. Now, there was some news very recently that happened on one of the D1 baseball podcasts where Michigan coach Tracy Smith made a confirmation that the Big Ten in baseball is going to go expand from 24 game season to a 30 game season. Now, the league is still uh, at an odd number because Wisconsin does not play baseball. Um, and and this is again, I'm making guesses based on what we see, but there's going to have to be bye weeks, so that would put a 30 game season would have to match kind of like what the ACC does because they're in the same boat because they have Syracuse who doesn't play baseball. So they do the same thing, and they have a bye week. They have bye weeks for every team sprinkled throughout the season, and they need 11 weeks in order to get to a 30 game season. And that would mean that Big Ten baseball would start in week 4. So there would only be 3 weeks of non-con play before Big Ten play starts. But there would be a bye week somewhere in that 11-week period during the 14-week season. The last 11 would be league with one somewhere sprinkled in for every team, being a non-con series. The other news is, along with the expansion in the regular season, there is an expansion in the number of teams in the postseason. So the Big Ten tournament is going to expand from 8 teams to 12. We do not know exactly what that format looks like. There are really two models to go off of. There's the SEC model, which has basically 4 teams are the top 4 teams go right into double elimination, and the other 8 teams play a one-game play-in game of sort to get into that double elimination tournament. So Tuesday is a single elimination play-in for 8 teams to fill the final 4 slots, and then they start double elimination on Wednesday. However, unlike the Big Ten last year, the SEC goes to single elimination in the semifinals, while the Big Ten waited till the finals to go to single elimination in the past, at least since up until last year.
You know what that means, Carl? That means that Indiana will be the only 8 seed ever to knock out a 1 seed and send them home. And that was Maryland, in case you were wondering. No 18 had ever sent home a 1 until we did it. And now it's 12, 8 meaning the worst seed.
Yeah.
So now the worst seed would be a 12. So no last seed. I mean, 8 might do it, but it's not the worst seed. Now it would have to be a 12 to knock out the number 1. Yep. So just looking forward to Maryland football losing this weekend to IU.
Yes.
I wanted to bring that up. Just, me and Craig Dietelo are going to watch the game together at the stadium. I don't know when you're listening to this, folks, but it's Thursday night, right? And I really look forward to beating Maryland on Saturday. We'll see how that goes. But either way, that 8th seed, lowest seed in the possible tournament, knocked out Maryland and sent them home for you Hoosiers. And it can't happen ever again now. It's a shame.
Yep. The other model is the ACC model. I think that's more likely, and that has the tournament broken into 4 pods. That basically 3 pods of 3 teams play each other in 2 games, so you're guaranteed 2 games, and then the winners of the pods move on to a single elimination tournament starting Saturday. I kind of think that's more likely simply because it's easier on the arms. It's a maximum of 4 games, and everybody is guaranteed 2 games. That's actually the biggest reason. I think Big Ten isn't going to have, Rutgers travel to Omaha to play 1 game. It's a little different than like the SEC. You can kind of get away with that because it's the SEC, and it's most of the teams are right there in the South, and it's a very centrally located. While the Big Ten obviously is now coast to coast, so there's a lot of travel for anyone involved with heading to Nebraska, except for Nebraska and Iowa. So
I'm Googling it now, Carl. I'm not sure if you know the answer to this. You can beat Google to it, but when does that contract end with Omaha? Would they maybe think about putting the tournament on the West Coast in the future?
I think the tournament runs through 27 right now.
One of them now.
That's what I don't know why. That's why I particularly remember it. I don't foresee that changing. I think
they'll stay there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the cathedral of college baseball, and it's in the backyard of the program with, and this has not changed. Nebraska is the program with the biggest fan base for baseball. So
by far, yeah.
So
given
those 2 things, I think they particularly, I think the folks who own the stadium love it because it's basically their dress rehearsal for the College World Series. So, and I think they would much prefer to have a power program in there as opposed to the Big East, which is their other option, because that is Creighton's home ballpark. So before the Big Ten took it over for their tournament, it was the home of the Big East tournament because Creighton would host. But I mean, this is the thing. I went. The 1 year I went was 2022, and I saw Nebraska fans were second only to Iowa fans in attendance, and Nebraska wasn't in the tournament. So
They weren't even playing the damn games.
Yeah, and I saw more Nebraska shirts than I did like any other.
That's
Uh,
wild.
so I mean,
Well,
just
we
one of
saw
those things.
those crowds. The series we played was at Haymarket Park last
Yeah.
year.
Yep.
Their schedule came out. We're not playing them. I was disappointed.
Yep.
I was hoping
But
we'd either get them at the BART or a rematch over there. The Big Ten schedule is so funky. You might end up going back again the next year.
yeah.
So, but no, their schedule's out, and we are not on it at all.
But I mean, you're going to see that's just even expanding to 10 series. That's still there's still 16 opponents to play. So
Yeah, true.
it's just yeah, there's still 16 opponents to play. So there's going to be buys. Um, I'm assuming based on the patterns that we've seen and also the fact that they said that they were going to guarantee that USC and UCLA would always get to play each other. I'm assuming Indiana and Purdue is a protected series. I don't know this just yet, but that's also my assumption. So that'll play into it as well, is that you're going to have Purdue every year most likely. So that's going to increase the number of teams you're going to possibly miss. In a process when you would get to every stadium once every 3 years, and now it's going to take four to get to every stadium. Um,
Mhm.
but expanding to 30 games, actually by the numbers, it's about the same percentage of the league that you hit. And also, I think it's more games, so that's more telling. So when you keep that percentage of the league that has been played, and you have more games, so that just one series isn't gonna completely define a season.
Yeah.
I think it may be a big improvement. I guess the real question is, where are these games going to be played? There had been talk about trying to do a big event. Based on the podcast that I heard, I got the impression that's not in the cards, at least for this season. Um, so I don't know if they're going to try to make a point to have these played at on turf fields or in nice weather. Whether that be indoors in Minneapolis or outdoors in Los Angeles and at places like the BART that are really capable of hosting baseball in early March. But we'll see. We'll have to wait till the schedule comes out to be sure. So that brings us at least up to speed on the national picture, um, and what's going on with the Big Ten, which is, I think, pretty solidly now in the. You have a hard time not calling the Big Ten a power conference in baseball. Um, 17 teams, lots of national champions now. It's been a while, but I mean, UCLA just won one, what, 11 years ago. So I guess it's not that long ago. And USC has won, I think, 11 total national titles. These are good programs, and the Big Ten itself, the standard footprint of the Big Ten, you know, got itself back. I really felt like the Big Ten got itself back into the picture. Number four actually outdid the Pac as a in the RPI as a conference last year. So I'm and the sad thing is the four teams coming in based on their last year performance actually drag down the conference, not pull it up. But again, that's based on last year, and I think a lot of those were outlier performances. I think we're going to see better performances out of USC and UCLA going forward. So that brings us to Saturday, October 5th, 1 p.m. at Bart Kaufman Field. Cincinnati comes to the BART. And I know it's like Cincinnati power program. They finished fifth in the Big 12 last year. They uh, they came right out with a new coach and put the Big 12 on alert. So they did well right away. They've got a good solid pitching core coming back with, and also some transfers. It will be a homecoming of sorts for Cal Sefcik, who has transferred to Cincinnati. Um, hopefully he will not do to Indiana what Corbin Dickerson did to Louisville.
will. I'm sure in some way he will find a way to cost Wiggins an at bat somehow. Every time I would want Wiggins to hit it with Sepsic. Every single time. I don't know, man. They had this obsession with this kid. Wiggins could have had so many more at bats. That's one thing that's a hill I'm gonna stay up on. Cal Sepsic. I understand. I mean, maybe he was one of those fall ball guys or a spring training guy or like a practice guy, but damn, Wiggins could have had so many more at bats last season, and I saw way too much of Cal Sepsic.
Yep. And I'll say that I know it's. I actually wanted to point this out. I was actually really impressed because if you look at his line score, Wiggins was I think in the second game was 0 for 2 with 2 walks. But this is the thing. There's nothing I enjoy hardly more watching Indiana baseball, and you would think that it would be boring. But watching Andrew Wiggins take a walk is like a work of art. Because I mean, yeah, sometimes you have a pitcher that can't hit the zone. That was not the case. He was down 0-2 in both of these. In the first one, the 0-2 pitch, the first 0-2 pitch, the 0-2 pitch that came by was barely off the zone. It was a very, very well pitched 0-2 pitch, just off the zone, a pitch that would be hard to hit, but also hard to take. And Wiggins took it, got to 1-2, fouled some pitches off, saw some other close pitches, and walked. And he did that all last season. And to see him doing it again, it's just really impressive watching the plate discipline from that particular young baseball player. So I wanted to make sure.
And this is a guy who doesn't get a lot of ABs.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have the time. He doesn't get a lot of playing time. Let this kid play this year. Let Sepsic. You stay in Cincinnati, and Andrew Wiggins gets a lot more ABs hopefully this season because I think he's earned it. He always seems well spirited in the dugout. Always room for his teammates. He's the first one out there to throw the ball out with the outfielders and the whole thing. But yeah, he needs some more playing time. Somebody talk to somebody about that.
All right. So we will pretty much be doing the same thing. We'll have I'll have the live blog up on apps.iubase.com, so you can follow along. I'll have to talk to them to figure out if it's officially 2 games or 1 game or how that's all going to play out. It always gets confusing because they oftentimes tell me one thing and it turns out to be the other. But
because you get Grumpy Sagerman. Yeah. That was another guy I missed seeing, Grumpy Sagerman. Remember in the beginning when I was talking about routine and you're used to seeing the guys warm up, and then there's Grumpy Sagerman walking through. So that guy, I don't know. He always looks so grumpy when he's walking on the field. I love it. It makes my heart happy to see Grumpy Sagerman again in the fall. But yeah, I'm sure he'll be grumpy about us not saying it's 2 games and it's only 1. And it warms me up, and it knows that baseball is back.
All right. So again, just you'll see us on socials. I might be able to have some time to put a preview together for Cincinnati. I don't know how important that is, but maybe just a preview of the game, and I might hit a couple points about what they might be facing against Cincinnati. I won't have as much about IU because we've already done a preview of IU, and we've talked a little bit about those players here. But if you can, get out to the field. It's at 1 p.m. At least from what I saw this morning, the football game away at Northwestern will be starting at 3:30. So even if you're planning on taking the football game in, you can come out at 1, watch a couple hours of baseball before you go on to watch the football game.
Yeah, watch the first game. I mean, you're going to get a 7-8 inning game. You're going to still get to your establishment in time. Send a few guys there early to save the seats if you have to at Buffalo's or the upstairs pub or wherever you're going to watch the game. And hey, if you're going to somebody's house, I'll be there after Hoosier baseball. You'll still get there before kickoff. And obviously, I'm a big Hoosier football fan. Not like I am baseball. Obviously, it's a little different. But, I mean, this is an exciting season so far. And to be able to go to the games and enjoy it, because 2020 was the only other really good season. We couldn't even go to the games. It's kind of weird. But, hopefully we take care of Maryland and then Northwestern on the road. And then that's when Cincinnati will be here playing us in the baseball, I mean, everything IU is good, right? Field hockey, softball, the volleyball, whatever it is, root for them. It's a good thing. But you know what? If you want this baseball program to benefit from any other program in this college, let football get good.
Yep.
Because I got to tell you, basketball really can't make any more money than it does. And I know that seems weird to say, but they've already pretty much brought in what they're going to bring in. Football has so much more to go. And if they ever got good, we ever got good, however you want to say it, that's a ton more money into the program. And then it gets distributed out. And of course, baseball, we'll get a little piece of that too.
Yep. All right. But that'll go ahead and do it for this edition of Talking Hoosier Baseball. For Chris Feeny, I'm Carl James. And on October 5th at 1 p.m., we will see you at the BART.